Hey guys, Dave here. Welcome to the Centurions Review, the punk rock band of wargame review institutions. I have made some scatter terrain pieces, so I figured I'd show you guys how to do it. The parts needed are pretty simple as far as terrain building goes, so let me show you what the original looks like. Got some trees here. This is on a foam board, which is on top of an audio CD. It's got some racks I made there. I made the racks out of foam board. I don't like the racks too much. I'm going to try doing those with cork this time to see how they go. And then the trees are a little bit too mono-colored, so I'm going to put some flack on them to try and make them look better on the next one. And then as you see on the edges here are a little bit rough. For those, I'm going to put some plaster on the side, just smooth it on there to smooth out the sides on the next one. Let me show you the other parts. Obviously, you're going to need something, some kind of glue, like super glue or something. And then lots of trees. These are Christmas trees here. I won't be using those. Most likely, I'll most likely be using these. I'll put links in the description to where you can get all this stuff. And then you're going to need some sand here. The sand is for, if you look under the trees, I put a little bit of sand there to show that there's no grass growing there, because usually directly underneath a tree there's less grass or no grass at all. Here's some Citadel flock that I use for the grass. Elmer's glue, of course. And then cork here, I'm going to break off little pieces and use those to make racks. I found that the cork makes better racks than the foam board. And then here I have a little kit that I got on Amazon. It has an X-Acto knife in it, or actually a clone of an X-Acto knife, some extra blades, a ruler, and a cutting board. The wire clippers here I added on my own. And then there's some tin foil in there. That's when you're making like stone things out of foam board. You roll that over the stone, but you don't need the tin foil for this project. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to glue this damaged CD to the foam board. The foam board you can get at Target, or I think Walmart even has it. It's like $4 or $5 for a huge amount. Right, so let's try gluing it now. Actually, I'm going to put the glue on this side. It's a little bit rougher. That should be enough. It's just got to stick to the foam board. So I'll just flip it over and stick it to the foam board and let it dry. We're going to use the knife now to create a beveled edge on the foam board now that this is dried, or mostly dried. So first we'll cut out the circle. The circle's been roughly cut out now, so I got to bevel the edges here. So I'm just going to use my X-Acto and put it on an angle here and cut along the edge. As you can see, it's beveled now, but it's uneven here, so I'm going to try and use some plaster to fill in those gaps to make it even. The plaster is now mixed, so I'm going to put it on there before it dries. Try and fill in these gaps the best I can. Not trying to make it perfect, just make it where it looks a little bit less rough. There's many other materials you can use to do this too. I just happen to have plaster, so I'm using that. As you can see, it's significantly better than before. It's not perfect, but looks better. I'll wait for that to dry. It's pretty much dry now. I've picked out some trees that I want to put on it, so I'm going to drill some little holes with the X-Acto knife and glue them in there. So first one's going to go directly in the middle. See if yeah, that'll make it in there. So let's put a little bit of glue in there. All right, that's in there good. I'm going to put one over here. See if it fits. Yeah, that fits in. So let's put a little glue on here. So one thing I want to do here is I want to put the trees in such a way that I can fit at least 4 figures on this base. So I'll put one there. That's why I'm kind of distancing them apart. This will be used with between 25mm and 32mm figures. See if that fits. Yeah, he fits. Glue them. It goes there. And then we'll put one in the front here. Put them about there. So that's the reason why I chose to put the foam board over the CD, is so the trees have something to stick into. It just makes it a little easier for me. And it elevates everything a little bit too. Alright, let's go to the last one now. Just going to put a real tiny one there. Alright, so we'll let those dry and then go to the next. Now we can add some stones. I got these pieces of cork right here, so I'm just going to break them up into small stones. You want them to be irregular. This one's a little bit too elongated though. Let me shorten them. So I got 3 stones there. I'll just glue them on there. One thing, when you paint the stones, the cork absorbs the paint, so you might have to do several layers on it. Running out of Elmer's glue here. Put that there. And then we'll put one here. And one here. There's one. There's one. We'll see how these look compared to the other stones that I did. Actually, this one here looks a little weird. Let me adjust it. Alright, wait for that to dry now, and then we'll do a base coat to it. We're going to paint this now. I'm just using crappy craft paint for it, since it's just terrain. If it was miniatures, I wouldn't use craft paint, but this should be sufficient for this. Craft paint is only like 79 cents each. Alright, so put out a little paint, and craft paint is always too thick, so add some water. That should be good. Still pretty thick, actually. I'm going to add some more water. That's better. Alright, so just start painting everything. Might need 2 coats. Here's it after being completely painted with the earth paint. The reason I used earth instead of green down here is so it's going to be flacked with grass flacking, but if any of the flacking comes off, it's going to reveal a dirt colored area, so which is realistic, at least in my opinion. Let's wait for this to dry and go to the next step. Alright, the paint's mostly dry now, so we're going to start painting the racks. I'm just putting some Reaper Miniatures shadowed stone on as the base coat. Shadowed stone is on there now, so I'll just wait for that to dry before putting a dry brush over it. Alright, now we're going to dry brush a lighter gray over it. I'm just using this folk art gray. That's good enough for terrain, not good enough for figures though. But let's take most of the paint off the brush and gently just dry brush over. Need a little more paint. It's a little bit too, not light enough. Let's try and get it a little bit lighter. That's a little bit better. Now I want to add some browns there, so I'm going to put a wash on the middle of each. I'm going to use Army Painter mid-brown wash. Just put it near the middle of each rack. Just to add another color there. Alright, let me do one last dry brush here. It still seems too light. Or not light enough, I mean. That's a little bit better. One last one. Tone down the brown just a tiny bit. I think that's pretty good. Let that dry. Alright, we're going to add sand under the trees now. So, since I'm running low on Elmer's glue, I'm going to use some Mod Podge to attach it. You can use either one. So we're going to paint under the trees with the Mod Podge. It acts like a glue. And this will allow us to put sand under there to make it look more realistic. Remember, like I said before, underneath the tree there generally isn't as much grass. Alright. Alright, the Mod Podge has been added, so we're going to pour some sand on there. That's this stuff right here. I got it in a tray here so the sand doesn't go all over the place. Oops, actually I forgot to put it under the big tree. So you can see the sand attached pretty well to this. And since it's in the tray here, I can pour it back into the container. Place more of the static grass on here. This just puts grass on the side of the rocks. If I had a static grass applicator, it would look much better, but I don't have one. But see, there's a little bit of grass coming up on the sides there now. We're going to add flack to the rest of the base now. So first I'm going to put Mod Podge over the whole base. Being careful not to put it on like the sand or the static grass I put down. I've added the Mod Podge to the base. I'm going to add a little bit to the trees too, so I can put a little flack on the trees too. Just not much, just some. Some of them look a little bit too monotone. Center one doesn't look bad. I'll just put a little bit on there. That'll cause some of the flack to stick to it. Alright, now for the flack. Put a lot of flack on here. Just bury it. Bury it, let it dry for a bit, then get the flack off, and then we'll have to seal it. I'll show you guys how to seal it after it's done. So let's let that sit there until it dries, which shouldn't take too long. Here's how it looks after flacking it. I have to wait and let it dry and then seal it. While we're waiting, let's do a comparison with the old one that I did. Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good. You see that, let me show you the rough edges on here. Some of the edges on this one are really rough. They're less rough on the other one because I put the plaster on. The racks, be honest, I don't like the racks that much on here, and I don't like the new ones either. Probably could have painted the new ones a little bit better, but live and learn. Alright, last step here. This is what we're using to seal it. This is 1 part Elmer's glue to 9 parts water. You just spray it on here. I got to bring it in the garage to do that because it's alright, I got this on top of the garbage can. I got to spray it from a distance with this. If you do it too close, it'll knock the flack off. So I'm just trying to get it to rain down on it. Move it now so I can get the other side. It's getting nice and wet. This will dry rock hard, so the static grass will be less likely to fall off. It'll hold everything together. Alright, that's pretty wet. And one last one. Alright, after that dries, it will be finished. I did the final spray and it looks like the Mod Podge hadn't completely dried, so there was some bare spots. So I went over and reflacked it, so the flack looks a little bit thick now, but it's okay. One thing I noticed is the rock here looks a bit like a stump instead of a rock. So actually, if I'm ever going to make a tree stump, I think I'll use the cork because it seems to actually look like a tree stump. But overall, it turned out pretty well. It was an easy project. In the description, I'll put a link to all the different products I used to create this in case you want to make your own. Have a good evening.